Hi again, I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to be discussing what I consider to be one of the hardest parts of transition, and that is actually telling your friends and family that you are trans. The reason I think this is one of the hardest things to do is that I felt like I was forever changing their perception of me. It's like once you let the genie out of the bottle, you can't put it back in. So, it's out there, and it's out there for good. For me, the biggest part of telling people was working out who to tell when and how exactly to tell them. I knew early on in my transition that I wouldn't be going full time until I'd been on HRT for about a year, and after I'd had facial feminization surgery. Here in the UK, that meant foregoing the NHS pathway and funding my transition kind of entirely privately. So that gave me a slightly different proposition to how I may have come out to people when, or if I was on the NHS pathway. I'm sure if I had been on the NHS pathway, I would have been forced to come out sooner than I would have probably liked. So as I was waiting to be a year on HRT and to undergo facial feminization surgery, that meant there was a long gap between me coming out to Marie in February 2014 to actually having FFS in September 2015. So during that 18-month period, I wanted to be in control of the news, so I wanted to know who knew, and if they did know, wanted to make sure that it was myself who told them, so they could get the accurate story and not get the hearsay from other people who may not have quite that understanding of trans issues. Another thing I didn't want was to come out really early, so I could have told everyone in, say, March 2014, and then for the next 18 months it may have seemed like nothing was happening because I would have still been presenting mail, and to friends and family I didn't want them to question what I was doing. So I felt like if I came out too soon to people I didn't see day in, day out, that they wouldn't understand how serious this was to me. So the first people we actually told were my business partner and his wife, who happened to be very good friends of both me and Marie. The reason I told Josh and Angela first was because I was going to see Josh day in, day out at the office, and it just made sense not to have to keep that secret all the time. Plus, as he's a very good friend, I knew he'd be understanding and open to learning about trans issues, which he has been, and it's been brilliant. He's an amazing guy like that. Also, by telling Josh and Angela, it meant that Marie had someone she could talk to in Angela about any difficulties she was having with coping with me transitioning and the idea of it, because as much as she had me to talk to about it, sometimes she needed to speak to someone who wasn't me. I told my dad and his wife in December 2014, a few weeks before Christmas, I think. I still remember that conversation. It was extremely hard. I was sat on the sofa with Marie, kind of waiting to tell them, and there'd be a lull in the conversation, and normally Marie would pick up the conversation because that's who she is. She likes to chat and talk to people. But because she knew I needed to tell them something, she would let the kind of conversation die down, and then there'd be this kind of period of silence where I was trying to pluck up the courage to actually speak out. And I think me and Marie both got a bit of the nervous giggles because it was just ridiculous the amount of times that I was just about to say something and then I'd bottle out of it. Eventually I did manage to get the words to come out, and it was a difficult thing to do. It obviously came as quite a shock to my dad. He had never seen any signs in me to suggest I was trans. So I'd kept things pretty well hidden all this time. After that, the next people I told were my brother and his wife, and that was Easter 2015. So you can see how the months start to add up. After telling my dad and my brother in person, I would send an email like a day or so later, kind of summarising what I'd said, because I think when you tell people, they are obviously quite shocked, and it's difficult to take in everything at that moment in time. So yeah, I find if you're telling people in person, follow it up with an email, explaining what you've said again, so they can just digest it in their own time and then come back to you with questions. So after telling my dad and my brother in person, I then waited until around July time, I believe, to tell my step-siblings about me being trans, and the way I did that was via Facebook, on the kind of private messaging side, obviously. And the reason I waited till July was because both of my stepbrothers had weddings that year, and I didn't want to make anything feel awkward in any way during that wedding time. Although I did have awful hair. Yeah, so I sent them, Facebook messages explaining everything, and I did the same again about a month later with friends from kind of back where I grew up, who we don't see as regularly, but we count as good friends. So again, private Facebook message them, and then the final coming out to everyone I did via Facebook, and that was actually 18 days after I'd had FFS. So again, I posted a message, but this time publicly on Facebook, and at the same time Marie released a blog on her sewing blog, which is very good. It's called A Stitching Odyssey, and that was I believe titled Loving the Person, not their gender, and it kind of explained from her perspective everything that had been going on for the past 18 months or so. And it's a great blog post, and I'll link it somewhere below here if you want to read that. So yeah, that was kind of how I came out to everyone. There's no right or wrong way to do it. What I tried to get across to everyone in my message, whether it be when I was telling people in person, when I was emailing them after I'd told them, or that I was private Facebook messaging people, was to get across, immediately that I was transgender, and to explain what gender identity was. I would then go on to explain my history and background with it, and how it wasn't something which I'd just come up with. I think the key thing for me was reassuring people on mine and Marie's relationship. That was one of the questions we would get time and time again, was wondering how it was going to work with Marie and myself. So reassurance, if you are with a partner, is very important to people. I would then go on to explain how far into transition I was so far, and what I'd done and what I was planning on doing, so they could see again that I was being serious, that I'd thought this through. I would also say why I'm doing this now, why I think when I told most people I would have been 32, so why at 32 years old it was important for me to deal with being trans now. The final thing would be always to allow people to ask questions. A lot of people didn't ask questions, so a lot of friends didn't really ask questions. They would just send back messages of support. But my dad had a lot of questions, so we actually organised a Skype conversation with me and Marie and him and his wife shortly after we told them, where he had lots of questions, and none of them were bad or offensive in any way, so we were happy to answer them and kind of reassure them that everything was going to be okay. Oh, another thing I should add is that in my email to both my dad and my brother, after I told them, I included links to resources on trans issues, from the basics of terminology to kind of what it is to be trans. I also linked to videos on YouTube of seemingly happy and well-adjusted trans women. I felt that was important because I wanted to show my family that trans people can be happy people, because I think when you don't know much about trans issues or just trans people, the common perception is probably that being trans is a negative thing, because we all know how society can treat trans people. So I just wanted to show them that what I was doing was a positive thing, that I was trying to make a positive impact on my life. And I think by showing them trans women who are happy in their lives, I think that helped. So I actually think that's probably the most important thing you can try to get across, is that you are transitioning because you are trying to make a positive impact on your life. So I think I've covered everything. It's been a bit of a slapdash video, this one, so hopefully you can get something from this. If you are ready to tell people you're trans, then good luck. And if you have told people you're trans, then feel free to share how you did it in the comments. And that's my video. Bye.